computer. Welcome to Jesus TV, also simulcast on Jesus Radio. What you're watching right now is a television program that Jesus is doing. This one's called Poetry and Prophecy, and we're looking at some prophetic poems. Jonathan's gift that Jesus gave him is he's able to give expression to things inside of his soul that to me and to him are prophetic. They're guidance. And so today we're going to be addressing a poem that actually talks about some of the nature of that guidance, and it's called The River. And so Jonathan is going to read it for us, and then we'll discuss it.
All right. So The River. I ride upon your current, where I do not know, but I drift along with sky above and you beneath, and without a thought, old river, you carry me away, deep into the valley, out into the sea. You drown me in the tide of the thing I'm meant to be. You are wiser than the mountains, old river, and taller than the trees, for it's you that keeps on moving, ever changeless in your changes, and always being, shaping, giving life to everything you see. Give me life, old river. Give me peace, peace in knowing that you know where we are going, peace in knowing that I, though but a speck upon your current, am ever more becoming, ever changing in your changes, ever more a tumbling current, ever endlessly with thee.
I love it. Tell me about it, line by line.
All right. So, I ride upon your current where I do not know. Let's talk about that for a minute. So I ride upon your current where I do not know. That's just descriptive of what my life's been for a while. And I think it's something that not everybody longs for that. Many people have a trajectory and they know where they're going. But even those who do have a sense of that there's a deeper underlying current or a deeper meaning that tells the story, because even when you set a trajectory for your life, you can't plan for the variableness of life. And so you have to surrender to that. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so the river has been used as a parable of understanding by various poets and artists. I remember a movie starring the guy that looks like me. What's his name? It wasn't Robert Redford. It was, the guy married to Angelina Jolie one time. Anyhow, a river runs through it. And Brad Pitt, that's right. I look like him because he has ears and a nose and two eyes. So that you don't need to extrapolate much further than that, but it gives me quite pleasure to equate myself with that beautiful creature that God had created. And he's a good actor too. And I like that they use that. And it's one of those movies that I missed most of it, just like watching it like a regular movie. But then over time, it kind of seeped in like what they were talking about. A river runs through it. And of course, your allusion to life, that's my life. And it's a good way to think about it, because most people have been on rivers of one sort or dealt with water. Sometimes it's an undertow current. There's rivers actually in the ocean. That's what we have, currents. And as little humans, we're kind of powerless against that. It's like hurricane if it wants to pull us a different direction. And so rivers have a great power. And the so that's what I want to keep in mind as we go through your poem. I'm all Jesus focused. So I've given my life to Jesus. So if somebody was wanting to hijack my life, I'm sorry, I already made a deal with Jesus. And so that's a river that I'm to flow on. And I'm learning how to just let go, just, you know, like if I was caught in one of those riptides, which is like a little river that pops up, Jesus like, let go. Oh, but you'll be taking me out. Oh, we're going so far out. And but you can either fight it or, and I would fight a regular one if I was in Hawaii or something, like, oh, I don't want to be taken out 2 miles or whatever, might die. So I would fight it, I think. But they say, don't fight it is the thing. Let it run its course and the river will dissipate. That'll be the safest route. So that's kind of my experience with Jesus. Is he's saying, stop fighting me. You've been fighting me your whole life. I'm like, okay. And you do say that the natural man's an enemy to God. So I would just tell you, in my defense, Lord, it's very natural for me to fight you, the invisible God. And so the rivers also has these invisible characteristics, things you can't see under the surface. So it can look really pleasant and nice. Oh, jump in there, all of a sudden, whoa, there's stuff going on underneath here that I could be swept away with. And so then you come back to life. Welcome to life, because you're just going along seemingly in a direction you wanted, and then there's something that's taking you a different direction. And so, yeah, the river. Okay, enough of that, but that's,
So,
I like the illusion.
yep, when I wrote this poem, I remember the day that I wrote it, I was leaving on a trip. And it was a trip that I was not expecting to go on. And when I left, I was planning the trip, but I did not expect to feel drawn to take this trip. And I remember a day or two before, or maybe it was within the week before, and this is common to this day when there's a change. I still feel kind of an uneasiness inside, like, you know, because we get used to things being a certain way. And so, like, I knew this thing was coming, I knew I needed to go. And as I remember, my original intents with the trip were, it was more predictable. And then I felt impressed to take certain people with me, and that caused me a little bit of fear. And I wrote this poem and kind of in that spirit. It was like I could feel this kind of fear inside of me and this concern. And I just remember I just praying and feeling that need and desire to let go. And then trying to express my desire, I wrote this. So, all right,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I like that. The second line, I ride upon your current, and then the very next line says, where, with a question mark, I do not know. And that's kind of concerning. You know, you're just, where are you going? I don't know. Then the next line is, but I drift along. So kind of a surrender. Continue on.
So, but I drift along with sky above and you beneath, and without a thought, old river, you carry me away deep into the valley, out into the sea. You drown me in the tide of the thing I'm meant to be. That's probably any thoughts.
Old Man River. So when you said Old River, I thought of Old Man River. Yes, Old Man River. So the spiritual song, I think, probably came out of the slave days, where you have a people that have not been able to set their own course in many ways, but also Old Man River, something that's steady, powerful. I like that the attention, like, where are we going? but I drift along with sky above, so looking up at the sky, and you beneath. So kind of bearings, if you will. So even when we're lost, there may be bearings if we look for them. Okay, there's still a sky above me. So right before we started this episode, I asked Jonathan, I said, do you got food, clothing, shelter, tools, somebody to love? He said, uh-huh. I said, oh, me too. So we're good today. That was my checklist, what Jesus has for me. And that would be like looking up and say, okay, there's the sky and the river's below me. Okay, so I'm not under the river, and I'm not heading up to spirit in the sky. So I've got my orientation, um, and but I'm being carried somewhere. And so I like, and without a thought. Uh, and so that's interesting too, because learning to give up your thoughts and just like be carried away. And then tell me about deep into the valley, out into the sea. What comes into your mind with that?
Well, it's there's a real beauty to the life that is carried along by a deeper current, or to make it simple, God, right? Or like that, the idea that it's like there's a whole shift that can happen in a person's life when they're going along and they believe that they are responsible for everything that happens, and then this kind of surrender. And it's throughout all religions you see this idea, and I love the analogy of rivers, because, and you mentioned Old Man River, Old Man River, that Old Man River, he just keeps rolling along, and that's kind of the feeling. It's like we're a part of something way bigger. And you get that feeling with these great rivers like the Mississippi River or the Nile or the Amazon, or, it's like, it's this feeling, it's so great. It's like, you kind of have to go with it.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to abandon yourself to it. And it's like, we're a part of something, even if you consider like that, we think our lives are so important, but the truth is that our life is one speck in the trajectory. It's like we have ancestors going before and progenitors going after, and it's like we're one tiny little piece in the river, and we're being carried along, and we see society being carried along, and sometimes we get upset where we see society going, and of course there's a place for trying to make changes, but at the end of the day you have to let go. And I like too, the feeling I had that day when I wrote it was like, there's something so beautiful about it. It's like, I think about Huckleberry Finn when he's on his raft, and he's there with, is it Tom?
Yeah, it's
Or
Tom Sawyer.
Tom.
Hold on, let's see.
No,
No, it is Huckleberry. Yeah, it's
I was thinking
Huckleberry.
about the black guy.
It's
Like,
Jim. Yeah,
Jim.
so it's Huckleberry Finn and
Jim.
Jim. Yeah.
And they're on the raft and they're going along, and people have loved that story for, like, generations, because why, I don't know why, but there's something about the story of the river. The river is taking you somewhere. You don't know where you're going to camp. You don't know you don't know what the adventure is going to be. And that's what we love about Huckleberry Finn's story, this adventure of a river carrying him somewhere we don't know. And there's such beauty in it. It's like, there's moments in my life when I can look back and I realize oftentimes in my early life, it was vacations or something like that. Times when I could escape from work and go someplace, and we'd be going somewhere, and I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere or doing something. I didn't take a lot of vacations, or we'd be taking a drive. And there's this feeling of timelessness, and that's the way it is on the river. You're laying there like Huckleberry Finn, and you're looking up at the sky, and you don't know where you're going, but you got the sky above and you got the current, the river beneath. It's like you have this deep knowing trajectory that life is taking you. And then it says out into the valley, down into the valley, down low into the valley. We've talked about low before. low into the valley and then out into the sea. And the sea is this place of chaos, this place of all these different places, and you can't gain your bearings like when you're on ground. And then I'm not sure if we got to these words yet, but it says,
Let me
drown me in
let
the
me say
tide.
let me say a word before
Uh-huh.
you go too far away from Huck Finn and there and the river, the Missouri River there. Just a few more thoughts. One, the river is a place of life, and so
Yes,
um,
yes, right.
it's if you look at where cities develop, even here in Utah, they would need water and land and sun. Those are three basic elements. If you had those, you can make a life. And because there's life there, I mean, sometimes fish or other animals going to drink. So the water then becomes part of the essential, but then that life can become a metaphor that you can start connecting with, like you say, these invisible things that are hard to quantify because you're on an adventure, and that has its own rhythm. It's an adventure because you don't quite know what's going to happen, and if you did know what was going to happen, it would kind of turn into a mundane thing. And sometimes that's what you want. The Police sang a song that had this line, "My life was easier when it was boring." And so that tension of having a life that's planned and that runs according to some desire you have. And I think of a Barry Manilow song that says, my life goes, let's see, my life goes along as it should. It's all very nice, but not very good. So I'm ready to take a chance again, ready to put my life on the line. So he's basically ready to get on the river. It's like, okay, I was trying to hammer it out here, but there's no jolts, no surprises, no crisis arises. My life goes along as it should. It's all very nice, but not very good. So the river is kind of like a place of adventure. And so I think people like the water. You know, you don't know what size waves are coming in. And sometimes you'll have a rogue wave, like, I didn't see that coming. And you'll either die or have a cool story to tell. One more thought I have on this. These are scattered thoughts, but that's the nature of poetry. Sometimes is you have these thoughts that'll pop. So when you start talking about the river and Huck Finn, a song that's associated in my mind, but not just in my mind, many people's minds of my era, is a song by Rush. It's called Tom Sawyer. And you say, well, no, I thought you would have said it was Huck Finn, but for some reason, when Rush wrote this, they also had in mind Tom Sawyer, but they obviously had the river in mind too. A modern day warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride. Though his mind is not for rent, don't put him down as arrogant. His reserve a quiet defense, writing out the day's events. The river. What you say about his company, so you can think about Tom, is what you say about society. Catch the mist, catch the myth, catch the mystery, catch the drift. The world is, love and life are deep. There again, an allusion to the deepness of a river. Maybe as his skies are wide. So isn't it interesting that in your poem, Jonathan, you have that reference to the river and the skies. The world is, and life. The world is, love and life are deep. Maybe as his skies are wide. Today, Tom Sawyer, he gets high on you, and the space he invades, he gets by on you. No, his mind is not for rent to any god or government. Mine is. Always hopeful, yet discontent. He knows changes aren't permanent, but change is. So you continue on. I won't go through the rest of that, but I see that Rush echoes some of the poetry in there, echoes your same poem, and we'll run into that when you talk about change. Yeah.
I like that. Thank you. All right. So the next phrase is, oh, so you drown me in the tide of the thing I meant to be. I read that before, but that's, I remember the feeling with that is like, there's such a joy that can come in life with complete abandon. We
Yeah.
all experience it to some extent. A thought that came to me while you were talking was that, it's like we're the only creatures on the earth that don't go with nature, that don't flow, that fight it, you know? And that's not to say it's like, I think there's a reason. I think there's a reason why humans don't just go with nature. It's like we have a sense that we're trying to rise above nature, that our natural place is almost above nature. And, it's like, I'm sure as I say that, I'll have somebody say, no, we're not above nature. And you're right. But there's something in us that longs to understand nature as a whole,
Yeah.
to understand the whole process. And just the last thought with that is just like, it's like, I think that's God given in a sense. It's like we're the only ones that can buck it. Does that make sense? We're the
Sure,
only
yeah.
ones that can buck it. So it's like there must be something inside of us that's outside of nature and looking in on nature. Go ahead.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. And it's resolved in this, that tension, like, are we nature or are we above nature? And the truth is, there's a bigger nature. That's the thing, is
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
much bigger nature, and it involves gods and time and space and things that go well beyond what we interact with if we were dogs. Just like, no, I'm not really thinking about the stars and their alignment, although I may have instincts that correlate with these things. And so when the moon is full, I might have some desire to make a sound. Woo, woo, I don't know why I'm doing this. But as humans, we'll say, I'm going to study that. And we keep wanting to know more. So the dog doesn't even care, probably like, no, I just want to eat and procreate. But humans are like, okay, I'm done with that. Now what can I do? And I want to look at that star again. And then if you're Elon Musk, I want to go up to that star, in this case, a planet, up to Mars. And so you start doing these human endeavors that look crazy, until they're not. And so our very natures actually echo what we're made of. I like, there's a particular poem, it's a song actually, that we are basically dust, dreaming dust of God, stars, basically, our body is. So our very bodies are connected to something much larger than we are. And there's something in us, to go back to your poem, that wants to drown. It's like, I want to be swallowed.
Yes.
And so there's a song by Stevie Nicks that says, drowning in the sea of love where everyone would love to drown. So you're like, but you're talking about dying, and kind of, but poetically, just being swallowed, or being and having an immersive experience where you're overcome by love. All your senses, you're not acting normal, you're not acting rational, you just surrendered yourself to an emotion, and drowning in a sea of love where everyone would love to drown. And so that becomes, that's what comes to my mind. And drowning in the tide, I like this, Jonathan, what you've written there, what Jesus has had you write. Drown me in the tide of the thing I meant to be. And that's what I feel like started happening to me when I was born again in 2015. Something clicked. It was like I got caught in a current and started getting drowned. But
Yeah.
what I was getting drowned in is like, oh, this is what I was supposed to do. And I'd been resisting, I try my best, like, oh, that doesn't feel like the right way. That doesn't feel like the right way. And then just go like, no, that is the right way. How do you know? Because this big force just took me down, and drowned me, or that, like you're saying, the tide came up. It just eventually just swallowed me. And but what was swallowing me is the thing that I meant to be. So I like that. Yeah.
Well, and that's what's, yeah, boy, that you hit on some important points because um, number one, it's a force greater than ourselves. And so we all long, every human being is longing for what they're meant to be. And they have this kind of sense that they're not what they're meant to be, and they're striving towards what they're meant to be. And often what we discover, it's like when I wrote that, the thought in my mind is like, just drown me in the tide of the thing I meant to be. It's like, this is so much bigger than me. I can't deny it. I can't run against it anymore. I just have to, and like I saw this picture, you know how it is at the ocean. It's like, if you've been to the ocean, it's like, it's massive forces. My brother lives in Northern California, right on the ocean. And you walk out onto I remember the first day we were there, and he says, careful on that thing, it's like we have these rogue waves, and he says people die every single year right out there. And he pointed out to the rocks, because they'll walk out and then a rogue wave just, so the sea is just this massive thing that at any moment can completely overcome you. And I had this sense, it's like, and that only comes after this massive failure. And so that's the joy of every period in the history of the earth and the periods which are coming, which drown the inhabitants when it overcomes their ability to handle the complexity, because man wants to create heaven himself. That's kind of our idea. We want this amazing world that makes us into these incredible individuals, and we think that we can create that. But the truth is that we can. And so this idea of a spiritual experience, like where you're kind of overcome, is really powerful. And that's why I really hesitate when I hear different people that are insisting that, people only have, that it's like that this deeper experience with God is only available to people who think like them. I remember I don't know if you know who Eckhart Tolle is, but I remember him talking about how he had this enlightenment experience, and he described something very, very similar. Hitting a dead end, boom, hitting rock bottom, and then an idea, and came like a gift. And then, this idea came to him, which was he started to separate from what he was as a human. I'm Eckhart, his name wasn't Eckhart at the time, but I'm, so and so, and this is who I am. And he started to separate from it. And then he heard this voice that said, resist nothing. And so he just let go and just let it take him.
Yeah.
And the next morning he woke up and he looked around and he was a different person. It was like his life started over. He was like a baby, and he had to relearn everything, and so that is that's what we're talking about. I'll go on some more unless you have something. Go ahead.
That's the hope of the river, that there's a force greater than us that can take us away on adventures. And that's what my heart is kind of tuned to, that whatever God put in my heart, it wants adventure. So my greatest fear in life is to have a boring life. That's what Jesus helped me understand. Like, your greatest fear isn't like not having enough money or displeasing people. And I don't want to displease people. And I do want a big old sweaty wad of cash and to have power. But what I want most is just not sameness, not boring. And I think it's actually the devil's plan: sameness, boring, just get used to boring. And Pink Floyd called it comfortably numb. Hello, is anybody in there? I'm the devil. Can you hear me? Is anyone home? Relax. I need some information first. Just the basic facts. Just the basic facts. There is no pain. Oh, that sounds good. You are receding. Who's receding? You are. And so you get swamped by this other river, the dark river, and you are receding. My hands felt like two big balloons. And he describes this horror. Basically, he's being swallowed by some kind of addiction, but being medicated by people who are seemingly trying to take care of him. But he recognizes in his horror, I have become comfortably numb. And then it has a dark edge to it. And you just keep hearing the song progress towards this ending, and I'll just share the lyrics because to me, I'm like, oh, that's Jesus. He says, when I was a child, I caught a fleeting glimpse out of the corner of my eye. I turned to look, but it was gone. I cannot put my finger on it now. The child has grown, the dream is gone. I have become comfortably numb. And what a beautiful resolve, because I know it's true that almost every human being had that moment where they caught a fleeting glimpse of what that life could be different. Now, some people ride that current and God is using them to change the earth. And all of us, I think, are being used like that, whether we know it or not. God's like, I didn't leave you out, but you couldn't put your finger on it. And that's what I want. Like, God, help me put my finger on that thing. And so Jesus TV is that, like, oh yeah. So I'm being swallowed by the thing that I should become. And that's the current that you're floating in. And so whatever this thing is, we're like, where does it go? I don't know, but we've got enough structure. We're like, next poem. What we say on these episodes, I didn't know I was going to talk about that, but if you follow me long enough, you find that just like Mozart, oh, he has themes and he has variation. And that's what Huck Finn found. It's all the same. Well, what's same? Change. That every day we seem to be going to a new place and we're finding things out about human. And what are you finding? Theme. They're dirty, filthy, rotten, hard-hearted, hopeful sinners try to take advantage of you. Certain themes, variations. Not all of them are dirty, filthy. Some of them are very kind. And so it's back to the river and your poem. It's a good framework, I guess. I like that we're discussing these things. And they prompt many songs in my mind that have similar things. I'll give you one more by Journey. Wheel in the sky keeps on turning. I don't know where I'll be tomorrow. Wheel in the sky keeps on turning. And the song there describes that very kind of essence, that he's caught in this bigger thing. And the wheel in the sky, of course, is the sun, and days clicking by, and then tying it up. Well, my fear is the days click by and my life has been lived in quiet desperation. And so that's what my friend who actually posed the question, what's your greatest fear? I came back to him, I said, having a boring life. He said, that's everybody's greatest fear, Greg. And I'm like, hey, it's mine. But it is everybody's. Men live lives of quiet desperation. And so you've spoken rightly, Jonathan McCormick, that we all have these underlying desires and they're divine and they kind of tug at us and we can resist them and God will allow that. But at some point you might be blessed where like, I can't resist anymore. God took all my strength or all my money. I lost my job. Well, you're on the river. You're floating down the river. I'm going to paddle as hard as I can. Go ahead, because sometimes that's the right thing to do. But other times it's just like, you know what? I'm unemployed. And for the next 6 months, I got unemployment. I think I'm going to do stuff with the kids, and people just like, it's COVID and they live a different life. And they go, oh, life could be this. Somehow we got to rearrange things that life can be this. And so some of them never even plugged back in. They didn't come back to work. That was one of the job findings is, hey, there's a lot of people after COVID that go, I'm retiring early because they experienced that thing they got as a child or the thing they were missing as an adult. I should have been on the river with my kids, floating and seeing where life goes. So it's a difficult thing. Okay, so back to you, Jonathan.
Well, and so a couple thoughts. It keeps burning thoughts. I'll read some more in a second. But number one, it's fascinating to me that the Old Man River song. It's the slave who sings the song, the big black guy.
Right, yeah.
And he's singing about Old Man River, and just keeps rolling. He's talking about how he just is getting beat up by life. I get a little drunk and I land in jail and just like, where is this all taking me? Like it's carrying me away. What's fascinating is that he's working on a steamboat. Now, what steamboat has done is like, it's a modern technology, and of course it's built by I'm not trying to do like race politics or anything like that, but like, it's built by the white guys.
Yeah, right.
I like white guys. I am a
Me
white
too.
guy.
That's
So
right.
no, I'm not dissing on them,
That's
okay?
right. Yep.
Um, but like, it's built by the ingenuity of man, and they're the ones that are the bosses. We've taken control. We can move up and down the Mississippi River. We can go against the current. But here's a guy at the bottom, man. And what's he saying? He's the only one in the show. You'll notice that. He's the only one in the show that can sing that song. Why is he the only one? Because he's the only one being carried along by the river. Everyone else, it's like they're setting a trajectory for their lives. They've got, plans and goals and this and that, but there's one guy there that's just being dragged along by the river and thinking about that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I loved your Pink Floyd analogy. And I just wanted to say with that it's like, you know, there's a way out of hell. It's like hell is, it's like I look at like what I am and I think I'm bad, I'm horrible. And it's like, you're right. It's like, I don't know what the guy with Pink Floyd was doing, drugs, this or that. And it's like, he's like, whoa, like I'm not a good person. And this thing's dragging me on. And I remember this thing when I was a child and I can't get back to it. And I'm comfortably numb. And it's like, um, but here's what's fascinating to me is that somebody made the choice to come to this world, become a rock star, get hooked on drugs, and then to sing me that song. Somebody chose to do that. And isn't that part? And
Yeah.
it's like, and the moment that that man can look at his life and go, I wonder if this was all for a reason. That's the place where it's like that starts to break the addictive cycle. It's like, oh, wait a second. Maybe all of this was for a reason. And then it's like you can start to look at, it's like you're not so caught in the cycle because you begin to believe that even though you've gotten caught in the darker, deeper parts of the river and you've been drowning, that somehow your life has been useful to other people. And that maybe it wasn't just, it was you and your faults, but maybe it wasn't just that. Maybe it was something that was deeper and larger and broader, like the river and like the sky. You were going to
Yeah,
say
I
something.
like that. And one reason, if people said, "Why? What energy brings you to these poems, Greg, and to these discussions with Jonathan and Jesus and the angels?" And I'd say it helps keep me awake. So I'm going to reference a scripture in the Book of Mormon where a prophet prophesied of our day. And this is what he saw. And it relates, of course, to what you just talked about in reference to Pink Floyd, but also your poem. For behold, at that day shall he rage, that'd be the devil. At that day shall he rage in the hearts of the children of men and stir them up to anger against that which is good. And others he will pacify and lull them away into carnal security, that they will say, all is well in Zion. Yea, Zion prospereth, all is well. And thus the devil cheateth their souls and leadeth them away carefully down to hell. And behold, others he flattereth away, and telleth them there is no hell. And he saith unto them, I am no devil, for there is none. And thus he whispereth in their ears, until he grasp them with his awful change, from whence there is no deliverance. Yea, they are grasped with death, and hell, and death, and hell, and the devil, and all that have been seized therewith must stand before the throne of God and be judged according to their works. And so, Jonathan, the point being there that that is part of the human experience as well. We seek comfort. And so that's why we've built this modern thing, and it's a blessing curse. So we find comfort and we metaphorically gather our comforts around us and have a comfortable pillow so we can go to sleep. But we weren't meant to sleep. That's the sleep of hell. We're meant to go to the next level and the next level. Certainly get rest along the way, but not stop on our laurels and say that's good enough. And that's what becomes evil, is not that you're at a certain level, it's that you're not moving forward. And that's the nature of God, and it's the nature of devil. It's kingdom building, always going forward. The river just always, going through its cycles, but also carving deeper and deeper and deeper into the soil which it is. So it's over time creating things and creating capacity. And so there we go. That's what I got so far.
Well, and one last thing. What was it? What was it? It was we're talking about hell, and there was something I wanted to say. Oh, you're talking about becoming asleep. It doesn't matter. All right, let's go back. Let's see. You are wiser than the mountains, old river, and taller than the trees. For it's you that keeps on moving, ever changeless in your changes, and always being, shaping, giving life to everything you see. So we talked about that a little bit, about how the river is a place of life. Along its banks, things grow. And it's also this terrible force like you described. It tears away at the mountains as it moves along, and at the rocks. It slowly and surely carries it all out to the sea. And it's at the same time, it's always giving life. So it's just always changing. And in the changing, there's life. And you said that. I don't know if you have another comment. Otherwise, I'll read the next part.
Yep, continue.
Go ahead. All right. So give me life, old river. Give me peace in knowing that you know where we are going. Peace in knowing that I, though but a speck upon your current, am evermore becoming, ever changing in your changes, evermore a tumbling current, ever endlessly with thee. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so peace in knowing that you know where we are going. So for me, this poem, like most every poem and song, is about my friendship with Jesus. And so the other day, I literally said, Jesus, hold my hand. And he knows what I meant. Literally, hold my hand, guide me where you want me to go. And I felt that day that he did. And so I said it the next day too. And it's like I said it today. And it was because my life has become like this. I've surrendered to the river, and it feels kind of dangerous because I don't know where I'm going, and it becomes even more precarious. So the nature of God is the more truth He gives you, the more you understand Him, then the more ambiguity that you will also go towards. So the closer and closer you get to God, the more you know, the less you'll understand. In other words, the more you'll be taken along by the river, and then you have to trust the river will take you where it wants to. In this case, for Jesus, and that's what I desire as well. That He would give me peace, and He has, in knowing that on that river, that I will be with Him ever endlessly with thee is the last line. Yep.
Well, and I think that layer on layer, it's like I don't know, that's what I want to. It's like a tumbling. It's like it turns us over and over and over. And it's like, just when we think we've conquered fear, another fear comes up. And what happens is that we grow deeper and deeper into trust, into trusting the river, trusting the current, trusting God.
And be willing, and be willing to die, because doing that, you do, at least on the surface, you risk your very life to go on a big river that's that powerful, like God. You've never seen a rogue wave like God. God will come in, and He, like we've seen it in history, He'll cover the whole earth. Did you see that coming, people? They did not see it coming. And apparently it's prophesied in the days, Matthew 24 and other scriptures, that we're going to be surprised, that it's going to be a massively a big wave that he's going to cleanse the earth with, waves of fire eventually, but before that, he will create tribulations, as they're called. And so you're like, well, I don't want to participate in that. We're on the river, all of us, whether we want to be on the river or not. If you're born into this life, you're on the river. Well, then what can I do? And that's what I'm always seeking, but I'm seeking the answer not from sheep. I'm seeking the answer from God. And that's why this television program, Poetry and Prophecy, because the poetry is not enough for me. I got like, what do you want me to hear of this, God? And what I hear from this poem is, you're headed the right way, Greg. You're learning to yield to me. And like Tom Sawyer, just catch the mystery, catch the myth, catch the spirit, catch the spit, catch what's real, and allow the river, as they say in that poem, and as you say in yours, allow it to do its work. Trust it. And this is a kind river, the J River, the Jesus River. And so, yes, I do some things that are reasonable to do, but more and more, I do less and less of those. I'm doing things that most people would not think is reasonable, and yet they're turning out. And I'm like, how do you judge that? In my heart, in my mind, there's certain things that I now know more in a deep way. And in Babylon, what we're taught is, in terms of course, following a course in life, you are taught to try harder. Okay, that's the main thing. But on the river, Jesus, that's not the prime directive. The prime directive is trust deeper, trust the whole river. There's a big thing going on. You're just a speck here, but trust the river deeper. And so I, of course, one thing does not eliminate the other, but it's an emphasis. So God has been emphasizing, stop trying so hard, stop trying, slow down, go slow, go lower, go like a fool if you have to, Greg, in order to yield to the current. Let me direct the current. I'm like, and I finally like, what choice do I have? My whole life experience informs me, because I've tried and I've tried. But every time I get put down, and it seems crazy, but I finally am finding relief. I'm finding that peace that your poem talks about by, I guess, doing what Huckleberry Finn and Jim did. Let's just lay back and look at the sky, just drop the stick. This river will take us that way, and then we'll end up somewhere. And they go, oh, hey, that looks like a good place. So yes, you'll have to get up and move the stick or whatever they did to get the raft over, tie it off. And then as you go into this community, it's the same thing. You don't know these people. You don't know what's going to happen, but you're trusting the river. The river's, you return to the river and you continue on. So that's what I had to say.
Well, and that's what I long for too. That's, as I write the poetry or write the things that I write, it's like, it comes out of having been willing to let God tell me what to do with my life. And I had a lot of reason not to, but I had to let go and believe and trust. And so, this one's been pretty succinct. How long have we been?
Let's see how long this has been. Looks like we're at about, does it show me? I don't know, it's probably about 45, 50 minutes, I think.
Wow, well, that's great.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good for us.
And Jesus just revealed a poem that for the next episode that wasn't yours, but it ties into this one really well. So I'll send it your way. It's called Human Wheels, and it was written by John Cougar Mellencamp, or he goes by John Cougar now. by his friend for his dad's funeral. But I'd like to have that as the next episode. And then we'll see if we can tie it back to the river. That'll be a nice exercise, because I think it paints a different picture, but it has some of those same elements. So yeah, let's do that. And hopefully
Okay, I like that. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, God bless you. God
All right.
bless everyone.
Thank you.
Till we meet again. Thank you.